Hey, what's up? I guess part 3 or whatever the heck I'm gonna call it if I actually put this on YouTube. Of a kind of first impressions type of review on the Westone W4s, or just the 4s, not the 4Rs, the original 4s, which I have right here. So let's get a close up, I guess, if you haven't already seen the first 2 parts or whatever the heck you're doing on your computer. Got these here. So a nice glossy shiny look, whatever. So this time I'm gonna particularly talk about genres of music that I've listened to with these, what I think about the headphones in that specific genre, and generally it's gonna be very good. Just as these are high quality headphones, good clarity, good soundstage, impressive imaging for IMs, and they're very neutral. So being that they're neutral, they're not tuned or colored towards certain genres of music. They're very versatile. Maybe I don't know. So I'm gonna go and open my iTunes library and just kind of look through what I've been listening to. Computer lag. Yeah, I guess I'll start with rock and classic rock. Modern day classic rock, I mean, generally the instruments are the same, the style tends to be different, and what's really going to make the difference is the instruments and the ability of an IEM to portray the instruments as they should sound. And I think the Westone W4 does an impressive job of just about everything. And things that I really thought were good when listening to rock, alternative rock, indie, was the clarity and the lack of muddiness, the good detail, which I think was good in particularly instruments such as the electric guitar. The electric guitar sometimes will sound muddy on lower end headphones. Even on my Shure SC215 limited editions, it tends to sound a bit muddy. So and seeing that the electric guitar sounded about as it should, because I play a little guitar, so I know it's going to sound like, especially through an amp, and it sounded pretty good, especially in overdrive. The guitar played through even lower quality music, lower quality headphones, can sound pretty distorted or muddy. So I was definitely impressed, even with the drums themselves. Cymbals, especially cymbals, if you don't have in my opinion, if you don't have like a really nice pair of IEMs like these, a nice cymbal clash is just going to sound kind of hurtful to the ears. If you got a high volume, it's not going to sound amazing. So it sounds distorted and such. It was actually pretty nice on the Westone 4s. I was impressed. I guess as their top of the line headphones, I'd expect something like that, but but it was good. The drums. One thing I liked, it has like for me, when it comes to audio, if you're listening to IEMs. Either you have really bassy IMs or bassy, what I'm used to listening to for maybe like bass heads like Byron Wilkins ES5 have a ton of bass. And so when you're listening to bass, you're going to feel more of the bass than actually hear the sound. I mean, I'm not sure if that's how they say it, but that's kind of how I feel. Because you feel it vibrating, kind of like if you got a really powerful subwoofer just going crazy, and then you got a mid-range speaker playing the bass. You might hear the bass, but you're not going to feel the vibrations. The thing I loved about the W4s for bass drums and just drum sets was that you could feel the impact of the bass, but you could hear the clarity of the actual sound of the drum. So I mean, it was a perfect combination of both, very balanced in between that. I was definitely impressed. Drums sound like I'd never heard them before in all types of genres of music. So in rock, they're great for rock. I've heard the Westone 3s are more oriented towards rock and pop, possibly bassier music, so maybe rap and electronica, variations of dubstep. I mean, I haven't heard them yet, so I can't say, but I've heard the bass is actually pretty prominent, very impactful. Can basically get muddy and bleed into the mids. So I mean, I've never heard those, but I mean, I definitely didn't find the bass to be a shortcoming in all of those. Were very, very, very good. So I guess on to something a bit different, classical music. Classical music, it was different than what I expected. I haven't heard a bunch, but it kind of felt warmer for some of my piano pieces. Violin pieces, the highs were very, very crisp, very good high extension on that end. So generally, I was thinking, this is nice, nicer than what I'm used to. So I mean, compared to what I haven't heard any really high end, but I've heard more of the high end. I've heard Creative Orvana threes. I've heard some higher end balanced armature clips, some other stuff. I've heard higher end uh, dynamic drivers, and the classical sounded very good on these. Sounded. I mean, especially for some of my piano pieces, just because they're so neutral, that might just be the way they are. But it felt warmer. The imaging for the piano was good. I mean, naturally, when it comes to imaging for a piano, it feels more left and right, but I could kind of feel the distance between the left and the far left and the right and the far right, which isn't something you see a lot in IEMs. But I definitely felt it more in these. It wasn't extremely prominent, but the imaging was very good for classical music for an IEM. Of course, imaging, 3D imaging, isn't going to be as good on these as, say, a full-size set of headphones, just because that's one of the shortcomings of IEMs. It's crammed into a smaller space, so I mean, you're going to get that, but definitely for IEMs, it's probably top of the line. When it comes to imaging, I felt good about it. Same thing with the sound stage, separation of instruments and such. When it comes to classical, especially orchestral stuff, it sounds. It's important to be able to tell the difference between the individual instruments, the strings, the trumpets, brass, all that stuff. It's important. And as far as orchestral stuff, I was listening to some I guess some I was listening to some Alan Parsons Project played by a specific orchestra. It's a weird name, but I was also listening to some instrumentals by the Alan Parsons Project, which isn't really classical, but I mean some of the same stuff was orchestral, played on, I guess, by an orchestra, some orchestra that apparently is well known. I mean, I'm gonna go look it up right now because someone might be interested. Alright. Alright, yeah, it's huh. That's my mistake. It's not the Alan Parsons Project. Or yeah, it is. It's Andrew Powell and the Philharmonia Orchestra played the best of the Alan Parsons Project. So yeah, it's Alan Parsons Project. Just Andrew Powell. So that's classical. I mean, I listened to some stuff like Mozart, Beethoven, the older stuff. But I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I'm more a fan of more modern orchestral stuff. I did listen to some Tchaikovsky. So I mean, it's good. There might be some better ones out for classical. Like I've heard the UE 900s Ultimate Ears. They're better for classical. I've heard that. I mean, I'm not sure how true that is. I actually haven't heard those either. So that's another competing quad driver. And there's not that many quad driver universal IEMs. I'm sure there's a decent amount of customs, but the only quad drivers would be, how about I miss any? The UE 900s, the Air Audio AI4, I think. The Westone 4s, and Shure is just coming out with the SE 846s. Beyond that, Sony makes a quad driver, but I don't think it's very well thought of. So I think out of the quad drivers, this would be considered probably the best. I mean, you can't really say it's the best because people are gonna say all earbuds have their own specialties and such. But I mean, this is so nice and neutral and balanced where it should be. I think I'm personally gonna call it the best. I mean, let's be honest here. Normally, there's gonna be a best when it comes to this stuff. There's always somebody's gonna argue that, but in all honesty, these are great. Of course, I can't say I've heard all the other quad drivers out there, which I really haven't heard that many of them. But I mean, from what I've read and from what I'm hearing from these, I think these are the best so far. I think the new Sures coming out will definitely compete with these because they appear to be very good. But I don't know. Shure gets mixed opinions on some of their headphones. So yeah, I know a lot of people, especially the audiophile type, will listen to some slow jazz and stuff. I did listen to some songs by Miles Davis, but I'm just not a big jazz fan. I was just trying to see how it does with the bass and trumpet, saxophone, such, and it does pretty good with those. Some other stuff I listened to some vocalists which had similar instruments, especially bass, and I don't think piano is really in any jazz, but generally that sounded good, satisfactory. I can't say stellar or not stellar just because I don't listen to that stuff. Another stuff I like to listen to a lot, just because I don't know how I got into it, but electronica, variations of dubstep, like such as chip step, bro step. Artists like Deadmau5, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. Skrillex, I mean, naturally. Some other artists, my personal favorite, Mizuki's Last Chance, who's kind of an underground artist. Dadsick, Excision, more dubstep artists. But I mean, with that, when it comes to electronica, especially dubstep, because there's a lot of different sounds with the wobble bass and all the different, anyone who listens to it knows what I'm talking about. I really feel like a pair of full-size headphones generally does better just because the imaging tends to shine when it comes to songs like that. So I have Audio-Technica M50s, and I was doing some comparisons. Audio-Technica M50s, I can almost draw what I feel the sounds are moving like. If you listen to dubstep, you might have an understanding of what I'm saying, but the imaging tends to be very unique when it comes to that. You can feel the sounds move from one place to another as they go from low to high. And I feel like that's where when it comes to electronic, you should normally have a larger, full set of full headphone overhead, whatever you want to call them. But on the Westone 4s, being as high end as they are, I was impressed with the imaging. It's definitely better than what I'm used to. Having quad balanced armature drivers, I mean, it's about what I expect, but it was definitely good. I could definitely feel more than just a left and right, kind of stereo channel imaging. So it worked good for electronica. Although if you're going to that, I might consider the Westone 3s. But then again, the Westone 3s and the Westone 4s are going for around the same price. I think you actually get the Westone 4s cheaper. So I mean, maybe Westone 4 is just a better investment. Then again, 4Rs I'd prefer just because of the detachable cable, but I don't want to spend that kind of money because they're ridiculously expensive. I think retail like $710. I don't know. So yeah, that goes over a lot of different genres. Let me think. What else do people listen to? Classic rock. I mean, same as rock. Did I nail it all? Pop. Pop. Similar to, similar to electronica, maybe rock. Instruments are similar. I don't listen to a ton of pop. I listen to some like K-pop occasionally, but I mean, it's gonna do well for that too, just because it's nice and neutral. Although it's not specifically oriented towards any type of genre. I'm just gonna double check to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. Like piano pieces, violin pieces, those are something I listen to a lot. Very very good on these. And I'm not a very big audiophile. I mean, I just say that because I really enjoy high quality music being played the way it should be. And that's what I liked about these. But I'm not really into the technical. I don't know a ton about the technical stuff, specifics. I don't get crazy with the tube amps and special cables and such. But I still enjoy having good music. See, I'm gonna go ahead and through sources of what I played the Westone 4s with and give my opinion on those sources. Start off, as you can see, you probably can't see it, I have my setup back here, and I don't know if I want to show it because it's a pain to get this camera back in position, but I'll go ahead. So right here I have my computer, my monitor, I got my iTunes library open, got a speaker there, that's for a Logitech Z5500. Have an external sound card here. This is from a Creative Audigy Platinum 2. It's an older sound card, but it still works good. I got a smaller subwoofer there. There's the receiver from my Logitech Z5500. So when I'm playing through my computer, since I have the external sound card, I'll normally play through here through the sound card, or I mean, I guess if I don't have it set up that way on my computer, I can just plug it into the Logitech Z5500, which I don't think is great on the Logitech, just because I don't feel like the output's as powerful as it could be. Media player right now I'm using iTunes, but normally I'll use Winamp, but I'm having trouble with Winamp. I'm probably going to have to reinstall that. And I just feel like Winamp's a better player. It's got more plugins and such. It allows you to do more. I feel like it's more open, especially compared to iTunes. So as far as non-portable setups go, this is what I'm generally going to use, and it's not anything impressive. I mean, if I'm using an amp, I can always have a FIO E11 I'll hook up, but I mean, then again, I don't feel like you need anything better. So as far as portable setup goes, I really just use an iPod first gen. I plan on upgrading that eventually, but I feel like that's all you need. Just merely because, there we go. The iPod dang it, it's gonna be a pain to get this thing back in position. The iPod first gen, it powers it fine. You don't really need an amp. You can use an amp. You don't really need a big amp. I used FIO 11. It's just too much. FIO E6, you got that. You got the kind of EQ function. So if you like a bit more bass, depending on what genres you're listening to, you can use that. It's smaller, so whatever. You really don't need it. It goes louder than you need to. Excuse me. Listen to music with that. So generally, it's not a necessity. So the only problem, and I'm pretty sure it's just with the first gen, is the buzzing noise again, especially when I'm listening to softer piano pieces, since there's not always going to be enough music to kind of, fill up your entire speaker, maybe. I mean, not all of it's going to be working at once, not all going to be, sometimes there's blank. You can hear the buzzing. And, I mean, I've read technical stuff explaining why there's buzzing, dealing with, like resistance and, OHMs, I don't even know, all that weird stuff, but it's really just your source that causes it. I've listened to different sources, I won't get that buzzing, so I think it's just because I have an older model of iPod Touch first gen, so I've been meaning to upgrade that. So, I mean, otherwise, any portable source I think would work fine. I'll have to try with some of my smaller creative players, some of the smaller stuff, see how that powers it, because, I mean, if you got something small, you can always throw a small amp in there and it'll work fine. But generally, you don't need to power these through an amp. They work fine, even though they have, I think it's like 31 Omega. Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, compared to my Shure SE215s, they don't get as loud, but they still get loud. We're at the point where I feel like it'd be damaging to listen. And one thing that I like about these is even if I go full volume, it doesn't get distorted. And with most headphones, I mean, not really high quality, you tend to get the distortion if you go on a volume where you probably shouldn't be. But with these, they tend to hold up pretty good. And I don't have much experience personally with balanced armature drivers, so I mean they work different than dynamic drivers. So I mean, it's not like I can tell a distinct difference. Be like, oh yeah, it's definitely a balanced armature driver. But I'm sure I'll encounter differences. I feel like they're higher quality. I know, they use them in hearing aids. I think that's where they originally came from. Westone, I believe, makes hearing aids also, which I found interesting. So similar technology. But yeah, generally, most genres of music sound good. Classical would be the only thing I question, just because I've heard there's other quad BA driver IEMs that sound better with classical, although I can't confirm that myself. I'm just gonna quickly think over again, make sure I'm not missing out on any genres. I didn't really talk about vocals. Vocals sound really nice and crisp. I mean, not crisp like a tortilla chip, but like, well, kind of like not rigid, but I don't know how to describe it, but it's very good. Just say it's great. Great vocals. They sound kind of like an acoustic guitar sounds, but in vocal form. That really doesn't make any sense. It's not sounding very audiophile right now, but let me throw in some more audiophile terms. Vocals aren't very colored because the headphones are neutral, and Omega, resistance, balanced armature, driver, ear canal. But no, I mean, vocal is definitely much better than what I'm used to hearing, and I haven't heard a ton of IEMs on level with the Westone 4s, just because there's not that many IEMs out there, and People are gonna own something like that are either gonna be rich or audiophiles. Let's be honest here. Who in their right mind really wants to drop that kind of money on a pair of headphones that's not an audiophile? So generally I very impressed with these IMs. Definitely a great buy, especially for the price. If you can get a sub 400, they're worth it. Although I would consider 4Rs if they're at a good price, just because of the attachable cable. I've heard that these do better with a aftermarket cable, but there's debate, over speaker wire and such. So, I mean, what can I say? I haven't been able to replace the cable on these. So generally, since these are neutral, you can do well with a wide variety of genres. So the reason I got these is because I want to be listening to the wide variety of genres that I listen to, and I don't want to have a headphone that's oriented towards some type of genre, such as the Westone 3s are. So it's just great. I've heard these are, people consider these to be very audiophile IMs, and I can see that really because of the great detail, sound stage, clarity is just beautiful on these. It's like a whole different listening experience from what I'm used to listening to. So if you actually watched this far, congratulations. I'm probably at like 15 minutes right now. I'm gonna have to like verify my account so I can put up long videos and wait an hour for this entire HD content to get up on YouTube. But if you actually listen this far, comment bacon in the comment section. Just because, actually, there's really no reason you should do it. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, that'd be cool. But it's not gonna hurt my feelings if you don't. So, all right. Have a nice day.